blinking. There it goes. Yay. Hello. Good morning. Hello. We are here for our week ahead Astro Forecast for the week of June 13th, right? I think I did that right in my head. As per usual, if you are joining us, I'm Anna, the co-founder at the Sisters Enchanted, and I'm here with Sarah Milne, one of our team members here at the Sisters Enchanted, as well as one of our co-teachers in Expedition Astrology. So good morning, Sarah.
Hello, good morning. Well, good afternoon here. It's 4 o'clock here already.
Right? I know you sent me something at like 7:45 last night, and I was like, Sarah, it's so late.
I have to work late, and do you know what? I think the more I work with all you guys, that I just feel like a weird mix of time. I'm always very super envious, like it's like, oh, I've got so much stuff to do, and you've got all day. But also, I feel like I'm kind of in this weird, timeless, somewhere between Eastern
weird
time and London time these days.
Well, I know. Every time it's like late, or we were up chatting last night, and I was like, if Sarah didn't turn off her notifications, we're probably keeping you up.
It was off. Luckily, like on the old systems we used to use, I used to hear that pinging back this time. No, I don't. I didn't hear that at all. I saw this morning and thought, wow, that looks like they had fun, but I can't be reading all of that now.
No, there was nothing of any sort of importance that was said. So anyways, thank you all for joining us. I see Dana in the comments saying good morning, so I know people can see us and hear us. Good. So without further ado, I guess we'll just get right into it, Sarah, so take it away.
Okay, so we've got a lot of Neptune this week, so we've got that kind of like bit of that haziness going on again, that dreaminess. But it fuels. I can hear this echo really badly. If anyone in the comments wants to let us know if they can hear this echo, it seems to just be StreamYard. But yeah, it's super creative as well. So although we might feel a bit foggy a lot this week, it's also a really good time for being in our imagination and feeling that creativity. So from Sunday to Wednesday, the sun is square with Neptune. So we've talked before, but anyone who hasn't listened to these podcasts before, we talked about how we have the square. And I loved Anna's analogy of a boxing ring where you kind of might get thrown into the corners and you might get kind of stuck in the corner a little bit before you come back into the middle. So we kind of like have this energy that's kind of bouncing around in the square, and it's kind of trying to be harmonious, but it's kind of not, and you might kind of like feel like you're in that corner and you've got something you've got to deal with in that corner before you can go back into the middle and so forth. So you kind of like have this energy that is kind of fighting up against each other, but sort of dancing with each other and swimming about in the corners of the square. So with the sun square Neptune, it's all about yourself and your creativity. So the sun is you, it's your ego, and we say over and over again, the ego is not a bad thing in astrology. It's not like, oh, they're full of ego. It's yourself. It's who you are. And then Neptune is this sort of imagination and creativity, and they're squaring up a little bit. So it might be a little bit hard to feel motivated, particularly on new projects. It's not like you might find it's kind of like full of imagination and full of ideas, but struggling to really get going with things, and it can impact on psychological health, this sun square Neptune, particularly if you are somebody that has any kind of addictions. You might feel that you're kind of pulled into those addictions a little bit during this particular aspect, so be careful with that. We might feel a little bit disillusioned during this time. You might feel like we're battling against the odds to get things done, like we're trying to sort of move forward with things, but we might feel like circumstances, situations, other people are kind of causing us to feel disappointed and disillusioned. So make sure that you kind of believe in yourself and keep that sun element of yourself, that you're really kind of, look, this is me, this is my ego, and I'm going to keep going with things. But it is a really super cool ethereal energy, and that kind of like lovely imagination and spirituality will be really kind of like here with you and with yourself. And it is also a good time for charity work, because Neptune likes to connect with the whole and the society. So kind of work with social causes and work with our spirituality and any kind of religious work. It's a good time for that.
Fascinating. I think that this is a super interesting coming up especially after this Gemini new moon eclipse situation we just had. We had one of our co-witching sessions over in our Enchanted Journey and Holistic Witchery communities yesterday. And it's where we get together every full moon and new moon, just have a quick chat, and then we sit together with all of our computers on mute, and we do whatever it is that we feel called to do at that time, whether it's pull some cards or clean a room in your house or journal or whatever magical thing you need to do at that time. And I went on and I was like, is anybody else, because especially with Gemini season, with the Gemini new moon, I was like, is anybody else like super startled how emotional they were during this new moon? Because like on a surface level, I thought that it was going to be like a lot of, especially because Mercury was retrograde and such, that there was going to be like a lot of communication, a lot of sorry, I was reading a comment real quick. So yes, we will answer that maybe in the and after I'll do this, I'll bring it up to Sarah, because Sarah I think is best to answer that question anyway. But I was super surprised how emotional this past new moon eclipse energy was, because I thought it was going to be fast talking, a little bit stumbly, a little bit confusing, but kind of like, you know, Gemini and air. I thought it was going to be a little bit more action, motivation, you know, a little bit. I was surprised at how emotional it was, and it sounds like we might be not shaking that this week.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel the same. Like I was, as you know, right, and this book I keep talking about, I keep kind of having to get to the edges going, and then next week, one more week. And I kind of was really souped up to really get going with that and seeing this Gemini energy in the communication. But I had the same, I was writing the first chapter of the book, which I haven't just done one chapter. I kind of like, I've just had this real block of that one because it's the first one you think people are going to read on. Yeah. And it's about Mary Shelley, and I was just like, kept like every sentence is like, I don't like that sentence. I don't like that sentence. I sat down yesterday morning and wrote, like, usually I storm through a paragraph, and it's like I have literally not even stopped to make a cup of coffee and I've got a paragraph, because that same thing, it's that kind of like, I thought that Gemini would make me just want to go, yeah, but it wasn't. It was like, that's not doing her justice. That isn't a good enough sentence. I don't like that sentence.
Well, like I said, yesterday we had our regular like team meeting, and I had watched the cartoon Mulan, the Disney Mulan, with my son, who's 9, and he had never seen it. I think he had, but he like didn't remember seeing it. And we watched it, and I cried twice, and never in my life, and all the times that I've seen Mulan, have I ever cried. And I'm not a crier, and I cried twice during that movie, like tears, like welling up of emotion. And I was like, how is this even happening to me? This is not like me. I will say, Britt Ann has a question, and I'm going to read it to you, Sarah, because you can't see the comments, right?
No.
Can you see the comments? No. I'm going to read it to you because I think that Sarah is the best to kind of navigate this question, and we probably won't get too far into it just because it is kind of like health related, but Sarah's the best to answer it. And I do see Cassandra saying hello, and she can't wait for Expedition Astrology to start again. And so hello to you, and we can't either. It's going to be so good.
It's going to be excellent.
So Britt Ann is saying, but could this astrological situation, the Sun square Neptune, cause worsening of mental illness? And you kind of talked about that for a second. And Sarah, if you want to just let everybody know what you do like in life real quickly, and then you can just, like I said, it's like a health related question, so I don't want to get too far into it, but
so anything to do with health and magic, and whether it's astrology, tarot, whatever we're doing, we always say that you shouldn't be reading health, because we're not medical doctors and we're not health practitioners. That said, I am a health psychologist by background, so in my astrology practice, I do read health charts, and I'm actually going to be doing a session with the Expedition Astrology students just after this on exactly that, how I read health charts. But I can do that because I have that other health expertise and profession behind me as well. But I cannot diagnose physical problems because I'm not a physical doctor, but I can talk about anything that's health related. So psychological health comes into that, of course, and I can talk about how people might be adapting and coping with physical conditions and so forth. So yes, the Sun trine Neptune can have an impact on mental health, but I wouldn't like to say, oh, it's going to worsen a mental health condition. I would always say, if you have the concerns that it might worsen your mental health condition, then talk to your mental health practitioner about how you might be able to manage that. But yes, certainly it is because it can bring us into ourselves. So it wouldn't necessarily, well, that said, if it could exacerbate any sorts of mental health conditions, really, because if you had some kind of psychosis, of course it could bring you more into your imagination, and we're obviously, with psychosis, you're trying to stay in the real world and away from the imagination, but it could pull you back into the imagination. And when it comes to anything like depressive or inward, then yes, it could make you more inward. So it's if you have a condition like that, it's really good to be aware that between like from the beginning of this week, so between Sunday and Wednesday, you might feel that, because it can help you as well, because you could be like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm going into myself some more, and I'm worried my condition could be getting worse, but actually it's probably just this energy, so I just need to sit with it, do whatever it is I need to do, and I'll come out later in the week. But certainly if you have a big concern about yourself or anybody else, then always talk to your practitioners as well.
I know for me specifically, and we're spending a little bit of time here on this Sun square Neptune situation, but I know for me specifically, because this is all happening, so Britt-Ann's saying it's good to be grounded, probably, yeah, having like a good breath, be recognizing that you're in your body, that you're grounded, that you're here, focusing on the now and not letting yourself kind of drift. I know for me, I have my Chiron is in Gemini in my 8th house. So a lot of this stuff that's happening is like in that space, that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so for me, I know that like my Chiron, for me specifically, is a few things. Chiron in my 8th house is a few things. But I know that one of the things that it does for me is it really does nag on this feeling of people not listening, or I'm not being heard, and that I talk circles in my head, or I talk circles out loud sometimes, because I start getting this like emotional kind of confrontation of myself of like, nobody's hearing me. Do I sound crazy? I like crazy and over in my head. And this is like crazy about, like, this is my brain. I say that loosely, that's my brain and the word I'm using for it. But then I also do it to people like around me, because I feel like I am not being listened to, and I feel like people don't hear me. And then it becomes like this thing. And then you just wear yourself out mentally, because you're worried that you said the wrong thing, or you didn't say something, or should I have said something? Should I not say that? And it becomes like super duper exhausting. So especially for me in this time, and being aware and being grounded, I need to be aware when I'm overthinking. Like Britt-Ann is saying, like, take a deep breath, be in the now, take a deep breath and listen to like what's happening now, and not what happened 10 minutes ago or what could happen 10 minutes ago. And also just being really healing in my own body, because that 8th house is also a very physical house for your body in certain ways. And I also need to be really honoring of myself and my own like physical boundaries, because it could be a time where I'm really sensitive about like the way I look, or the way somebody speaks to me, or the way I speak about myself. And so being really grounded and being like, take it easy on yourself. Be here now, you know, like you're good. That's a good, it's probably a good time, because Neptune can make us a little bit wishy-washy. And I see Anna in the comments asking us if it's live right now, and we are live right now. So hello.
We're live. Yes. I was just going to show I have, I've just put this out my pocket as you were talking. For me, I'm really like in this energy into my palm crystals, and just like so tactile, and we've in holistic witchery, we were talking a lot about grounding yesterday, and a lot of people were talking about stones, but particularly for me, that feel of a palm stone, and just having it with you, so that you can just keep hold of it and just like, yes, this is something solid. This is grounding me.
Yeah, we did in holistic witchery talk about also spell circle casting and spells, and I talked about having rings, like I have it on my chain here, and that it helps me like remember of like a physical boundary that like I have around myself, and it's like a physical representation of a boundary, an energetic boundary I have, and that my rings are my son's names and birthstones, and to me, like, they are physical, like they're here, you know, like they're like my physical grounding. So for me, they're like a protection, like circle that I remind myself of my barriers, my boundaries, and remind me to be present in the now. So like for me, I like do this a lot, like put my thumb in it, because it's like
That's brilliant. I love that.
Being present. And it's like my physical representation of a circle cast around myself.
I love that. And also, I'm glad you said boundaries as well, because Neptune, of course, is really, it knows no boundaries. It wants to connect with everything. So kind of like our boundaries are going to be really, really important this week, because we also have a Venus trine Neptune as well coming up. So there is a kind of like this Neptune energy is quite big this week.
Yeah. So much stuff. I always think of Neptune because we have that Poseidon correlation, and Poseidon like never thought about, he just always behaved, not in the best of ways, but always just behaved or like just impulsively. Yes. Never thought about consequences, never asked permission for anything, and just Neptune's kind of like that, just kind of just gets lost in the moment and forgets to think about what is going to happen next outside of that. I'm seeing in the comments lots of people excited to catch us today, which is super nice. And Lana was feeling the opposite and felt very focused and aware of this new moon. So good for you.
Excellent.
I did not like this new moon.
No, a lot of it depends where Gemini is as well in your in your birth chart. Because for me, Gemini is in house 11. And I thought it was going to have an impact on my friendships and things like that. But I think, like I said, with writing this book, I think it had that emotional thing. I think it had that kind of like, I mean, I was writing about Mary Shelley, writing about her husband, Percy Shelley. And I was just like, oh, no wonder she felt like that, because it all relates to what her dad had written about her mum just after she was born. You know, and I think it's quite good. I think it's probably brought some really nice emotional touches to the story I was telling. But I think it was kind of like that in that 11th house, it was that connection to society and rather than friendships that kind of came out. So I kind of experienced it in a way I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
Even though I was preparing myself.
Right. So you could be the best astrologer in the world and prepare yourself for every new moon, full moon, square, trine, anything, and still not get it.
Exactly. Of course you can. Of course you can. Of course you can.
So moving on, we have Venus trine.
Venus trines Neptune on Saturday, on the 19th. So I just wanted to bring those two together rather than going sort of sequentially for the week, because of course we have this Neptune energy. We're talking about this Neptune energy. So that kind of brings all that Neptunian imagination and stuff into with your love and your relationships as well. So, and that kind of like ties that creative expression with your relationship. So we might find ourselves daydreaming about romance, about how we'd like it to be, things like that. It's a good time for real kind of gentle, snuggly rides. We talked last week about the upcoming, which we're sort of still in that. We still have that upcoming Mars getting closer to Venus. So we'll get with that Leo energy, with that kind of like sassy sexiness. But Neptune trine Jupiter, so that's kind of where the energies are flowing together and they're like all harmonious. It's kind of like good for snuggling up and being so snugly romantic, and maybe watching a Disney movie together and that kind of thing. And it's good for a connection with your spirituality as well, because Neptune is and bringing that spirituality into your romantic, into your love life, and into your creativity. We always, whenever we talk about Venus, we always say that everyone focuses in on the Aphrodite love side of Venus, but Venus means desires, and Venus is all about art and beauty as well. So again, creative projects, this is a really good time for creativity. To have Neptune with Venus is a really good time for creating anything that's beautiful. So that might be another reason with that coming out why I'm like, don't like that sentence, it's not beautiful enough. And so if you're at all in any way artistic, poetical, musical, this is a really good week for you. And also just generally relaxing. This is not high energy kind of energy. It's not kind of, it's a kind of like chill out, like with whoever you think, and because it's Neptune, it wants to kind of like reach out to people in society. So it's a good time to just chill out with anyone that you feel needs you right now. So if anyone you feel is like in your life is just struggling a little bit, just to say, hey, look, shall I just come round and should we have pizza and should we just sit in the park together, you know?
All of this sounds really lovely, and I just like everybody in the comments that's here, I know that if you know your astrology chart just even a little bit, you're kind of thinking about like how this might impact you. Yes. And I'm remembering, because we were doing some chatting last night, Team TSE chatting, and we were talking a little bit about our Lilith moons, which is like a whole nother
I love thing. Love Lilith moons.
We're talking about the Mars thing that's coming up soon, and all the lusty times. I'm thinking about my Gemini and Chiron in the 8th house, and my Lilith moon's in Leo, and I'm thinking about like all of these things that are going to be like happening, and I just feel like I should probably take a nap.
It's sleepy, relaxing energy. And you talk about Lilith, I will throw in there that Lilith moon is going to be in the new when we talk about revamping expedition astrology. Lilith moon is coming in there. Yes. We're bringing the Lilith moon into expedition astrology because I love Lilith moon at the minute. So that's coming in. So those of you that either do or will be doing expedition astrology, you will hear more about Lilith moon.
Yeah. But just thinking about Mars lusty time and my Leo Lilith moon and lusty Lilith Leo, just things and lusty times, and I'm like, oh no, I should just probably just hunker down. See, there I am overthinking myself, so I'm just like, I should probably just
have a relax. Yeah, it's relaxing. We're to relax and do beautiful things. You're an artist, do beautiful art in a nice relaxing way. That's the week for that. I will just say Lilith moon, to me, Lilith moon is very much our sort of hidden superpower. I like equate Lilith moon with this kind of like real, like, what do you want to do? Who are you? What's inside you? What's your superpower? I love the like real kind of feminist retelling of Lilith moon. But we'll come back to Lilith moon at some point in these little chats, in these little forecasts. I want to talk about the moon. How was the topic of moon? We don't often talk about the moon's aspects because lunar aspects are so quick and over. Like the moon goes through the entire zodiac every 27 and a quarter days, so it only stays in each sign for two days, 2 1/3 days, and so the aspects can be just for hours. They're really short, so I don't tend to talk about them much because it's just like, well, as soon as you've got yourself thinking about what that's going to mean for you, it's gone and it's over. But I did want to talk about, we have the sun trine moon on Wednesday, and that's also, we have the void of course moon. Now the void of course moon is something that you hear about and never really talk about. Void of course moon happens several times a week, so we don't really bring it in the forecast. It's not like, oh, there's a void of course moon this week, because the void of course moon is happening twice at least a week, most weeks, and sometimes it's just for a couple of hours, sometimes it's a little bit longer, and we have a bit of a longer one this week. But I wanted to talk about void of course moons because if you are kind of magical or if you are creative, there is something important about a void of course moon, and it only lasts a few hours. So I would recommend, if this interests you, if you have like I have my astrological diary here, and it has the chart here with all the void of course moons, but you can also look online and you can get a chart which will tell you when all the void of course moons and how long they're lasting, exactly the hours they are lasting. So what a void of course moon is where the moon goes through the zodiac signs, and for each sign it's going to have the major aspects of all the planets. So like the moon, as we know, the moon doesn't have its own light. The moon reflects the sun's light, and that's what we see. But the moon also reflects the energy of all the planets, and the moon is the closest to us. So the moon kind of brings that energy to us. So although we don't talk an awful lot about aspects of the moon, they are really super important because they kind of bring that energy to us through their aspects. But the void of course moon is when, or it can just be called the void moon, it's where the moon has completed all those aspects, and it is kind of, it's not in aspect with any of the planets, it's just, and it's about to go into the next sign. And during that time, when the moon is not kind of like bringing us energy from other planets, when it is void, it's a good idea to avoid big major life events, big major life decisions, and also magic. Like if you have a ritual planned for the day or something magical you want to do, don't do it during those hours. If you're going to get married or something, check void of course, right, okay, not that time, we'll go 2 hours later. It's not the time for these major life things. It's a very good time, however, for shadow work, for relaxing, for just taking that time out, for self-care, maybe for working on ongoing projects where you don't want kind of like all this planetary activity kind of like giving you new stuff. You just want to just do what needs to be done on something that you've already started. It's a good time for that. It's a good time for relaxing, and it's a good time for sleeping. So with this week's void of course moon is in Leo on Tuesday, and that's for, I think for I've done my sum right for Eastern time, that's 12:27 p.m. till 10 o'clock p.m. So that's just lunchtime until 12:27 lunchtime until 10 p.m. 10 p.m. That's quite a long one. And then we have on Virgo the 18th, a shorter one between just before 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. So it's worth looking at these times to think, oh, there's a time in the day here, because when we talk about things not quite panning out or feeling a little bit different than you expect, it could be because that voided course, you've been doing something in that voided course time. So it's worth, I'm throwing that in this week just to suggest to you that it's worth checking these out and like noting them and just thinking, okay, on this day, just for those 3 hours, just take a step back and chill out. That's my good time to have a bath that day, or just to like not continue that day.
Yeah, we have a question too. We're answering lots of questions today. That Brittany's asking, is it possible to not have Gemini in your chart, or did I do the chart incorrect? I know Gemini rules my 6th house. You totally don't have to answer, but we will. Yes, it is. So every sign is in your chart. But it cannot be, it might not be on a cusp of one of your houses, and it may not be like a planet also. Yes. So for me, I'm a Virgo sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, but Virgo isn't on any of the cusps of my houses. So when you look, you don't see Virgo unless you're looking at the planets. And then sometimes, because a house is intercepted with another planet, meaning that there's more than one sign in there, it is still in there. So in order, so you would look at like where Aries is, and then Taurus, and then Gemini would be right after that, and then Cancer would be after that. So if you can see Taurus and Cancer in your chart, Gemini would lie in there in between those two signs somewhere, even if you don't physically see it. That's where it would be. So it's in there still, even if there's not like a marker or an indicator for it.
Yeah, it will be definitely.
Yeah, and Christina is asking if we're still offering personal birth chart readings. At this time, the Sisters Enchanted is not offering any readings, but you could reach out to us at magic@thesistersenchanted.com, because I know Sarah sometimes does readings still, and we can get you in touch with Sarah for that. Yeah. So so after that, we have.
So the sun is trine with the moon on Wednesday the 16th. Like I said, we don't talk too much about the lunar aspects because they're so quick, but just on that day it is good because it means we've got that balance between our unconscious intuition side of us and our kind of our ego, and the moon is in Leo, so it's going to bring us extra confidence. So Wednesday brings us into some nice confident energy after that kind of like Neptune kind of fog, that nice kind of like confidence and boldness. And we end the week on a really nice, one of the best, most positive of all aspects, which is good news for us because the sun goes into Cancer on Sunday. So we are talking, although we kind of will start next week when we're Sunday, but it's worth talking about the fact that on Sunday, at the end of this week, the sun moves into Cancer. So this is the last week of the sun in Gemini. And as it goes into Cancer, it's trine with Jupiter, which sun trine Jupiter is just really good because you've got the planet of abundance and luck and expansion, giving us all, feeding our lovely selves and our egos, which is wonderful. It's one of the happiest sort of like most positive of all different transits. It will bring us enthusiasm, self-confidence, good luck, but there's always a but. People sometimes feel Jupiter, oh yeah, Jupiter's just luck, so it's just going to bring us luck. But Jupiter doesn't actually bring luck. Jupiter shows us our opportunities. So luck comes through. It's like I always feel like if you know the film Titanic, when Jack is sitting with all the posh people and they're saying, he says, I make my own luck. That's Jupiter. To me, that is so Jupiter's. He throws it back at him. They give him something, and he throws it back and says, "I make my own luck, thank you." And that's what Jupiter is. He spotted the opportunities, and he took those opportunities. So that's what Jupiter is. It's opportunity. So the abundance comes through seeing our opportunities. So during kind of towards the end of this week, because don't forget we talk about this day, but it doesn't just go switch on, switch off. It moves. That's why I wanted to talk about it this week, because the sun is moving towards Cancer. So we're moving from the Gemini energy into the Cancer energy through this week, getting closer and closer. And this trine Jupiter will be moving towards the kind of like the main sort of peak of that. So make sure this week, especially towards the end of the week, that if opportunities come your way, like keep your eye out for opportunities, because in that Sun trine Jupiter, we can kind of come off afterwards and think, oh, I missed an opportunity and it was right under that aspect and I didn't take it.
Yeah. So, things to think about. So things to think about. So I would say, and Brianne, don't ever be sorry for asking questions.
No.
Never. I think it would be safe to say, between the Sun square Neptune, all the things that are happening, and then that Sun into Cancer trine Jupiter, that in general, this is a good time, like we said earlier, back in that Sun square Neptune space, just to try to be as present as possible, so that you don't get lost in that Neptune square, that watery pool of, it's like the seven of cups, those illusions, those maybe acting without thinking kind of things. And then also so that you don't miss the opportunities when the Sun transitions into Cancer and has that Jupiter. So to be just really present, stop, take a breath, ground, look around you, not to miss anything. Michelle's asking, is this for the week ending on 6/13 or beginning? So we always do the Astro Forecast for the week ahead. So we do Friday and it tackles, Sunday through the next week. So the week ahead. So it seems like a really good time to just try to be as present as possible, even if it's a little hard, you're a little daydreamy, you're a little clouded or foggy, to just try to take a pause once a day, once every couple of days, to take a deep breath and just remind yourself of the now, so that you're not missing anything and you're not getting lost.
Absolutely. And I think boundaries as well. Keeping your boundaries. And when we talk about Jupiter and opportunities, I think with the energy that's going on right now, there are opportunities for you. So that might be another time when boundaries are important. It's like, we are all, particularly as women, and most of us are women, we're all in this community, we're all kind of so like, but would it be good for them, and would it be good for, but maybe just that little bit, this is my life and this is my opportunity and I should take it as well. So lots of things. Like I said, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm very ready for all the things happening with Gemini to stop. That's just me, and that's my own chart. And I'm going to take note of this. And this is something that you should definitely do in astrology, is take note of times that like you're feeling hard, just in your being, or things are feeling really easy for you, and take note of what's happening astrologically. Because for me, I never think much about like the sign of Gemini in my own chart, because it's not my sun, it's not my sun, my rising, my moon. It's not a part of my stellium or anything. But I'm starting to be very conscious of the fact that it is my Chiron, which is a deep kind of seeded thing, and that the fact that it's in like my personal 8th house, that Gemini actually does impact me a lot, and things that are happening with Gemini. And I never thought of that. I always was like, Gemini, no big thing, this is going to be an easy time for me. And I'm starting to get the inkling that like maybe I've been ignoring when Gemini has been around, because I think that maybe it is something for me that is harder than it might be for other people. And I'm just now realizing it. And that's when in life you take that second back and you do a little bit of that shadow work. You do a little bit of that revisiting. Like, why do I not, why do I tune out during Gemini time? As somebody who knows about astrology, why have I never thought about this before? And now it's time to like revisit it. And especially because this time was so like outstanding to me that I need to think about that. Write it down. I see somebody saying it's an excuse to buy a pretty journal. Yes, huzzah. Absolutely.
Yes,
I was just about to say that.
Right? Yes. Write it down. And then the next time there's a Gemini thing happening, or it's Gemini season, that I should probably compare and contrast how I navigated that. And if it was emotionally as rough for me, what my Chiron means to me. Have I made any notches at attempting to heal that unhealable wound, and seeing how that goes? And that's the same for everybody. And so it might not be the same for you for Gemini, but maybe you have a lot of Cancer in your chart, and this Cancer season's coming around, and this lunar cycle that comes around. Does it really help you? Does it not? And to compare that to the next time a sign is really relevant or present, and see how, because a lot of people track their lunar cycle, like, oh, I'm so out of it during the waxing gibbous moon, and like I love me a full moon. And some people are the other way around, and they track that moon cycle, but they don't look at the underlying sign and what else is happening and how it might impact them. So for me, knowing that Gemini was a heavy hitter for me, when I was like, Gemini has no big deal in my chart, and I had always, you could probably quote me somewhere on a live feed, saying I have like no air in my chart, which is not exactly true.
That's not exactly true. Exactly, that's so true. And I think that's so. It's when someone was asking earlier about health readings as well. It is that it's so important. I quite often will say to people in health readings, like, let's have a look at a time when you felt like this again, another time. Like, is there another time? If they're saying, look, I want some help with such and such a thing that's happening right now, I'll say, can you recall when you felt like this before? If it's a recurring thing, and let's have a look at what was going on in the transiting planets then, as well as now, and let's see if there are any links. Always do that in health readings. It's so important.
Yeah, it is super duper important. And I will say that if you're feeling this way, and especially like me, I'm super excited that we have Expedition to Soul starting tomorrow. And it is a great time, especially if you've just come out of a moon cycle, or this time and you're feeling a certain kind of way, if you're feeling a little bit taxed emotionally, or even if you're feeling super great. Expedition to Soul is a great time to like stop, like I said, be present. Like I said, we stop, take that deep breath to be present. And especially this week, it's even more a great time because we have that Neptune square energy coming in, and that this would be a really good time for those who need the reminder to be present, to do that and take that, just even if you only take 10 minutes a day to do Expedition to Soul, that could be that your 1 moment check-in to recenter yourself into your present, into your now. And yes, there's still time to sign up. I bet Christina can pop a link into the comments here. Expedition to Soul, it starts tomorrow. Even if you're not available tomorrow, you can start it any day. You get an email, you get prompts. The lives that we have are all supplementary. If you miss them, there's a replay, but there's a video every day, a printable every day, and an activity. And this could be your really good check-in this week, once a day, to make sure you're in your present body. You're not getting lost in illusions, not getting lost in kind of your shadow self, but to meet your shadow self at the door and say, hello, friend. Is it time to toe up again and to join us for Expedition to Soul? Because it's 7 days of sheer magic. And we do talk astrology about our moon signs on, I believe, day 5. So be there. It's lots of fun. I'm excited for it because, like I said, this Gemini season and lunar cycle has been a doozy. And I'm ready for it to retire. And it would be a really good time to jump into Expedition to Soul. Christina's sharing that it's her 4th Expedition to Soul and doing the shadow class again. That shadow class,
good.
It's so good. Christina could probably also pop in the link for what is shadow work and how to do it. I think we have 5 lives this time for what is shadow work and how to do it. It is also an amazing webinar. Sarah is always fire when she does it. Sarah Waka, the founder. She's always fire when she does that shadow work webinar, and I'm always there in the comments for each time, and I learn something new every time she does it, and it's fantastic. There's always a new takeaway. So if you've been there, sign up. There's replays. Expedition to Soul starts tomorrow. What a great time to check in with yourself and be present during this time where we might be a little bit foggy, a little bit wishy-washy, and to rein in that transition between Gemini going into the Cancer season and being present so we don't miss opportunities. Expedition to Soul is a great time to clear out your mind and be ready to receive some great Jupiter opportunities. Don't you think, Sarah?
Absolutely. It couldn't be a better time for Expedition to Soul. Perfect.
So,
Yeah, I love
quest
Expedition to
pack.
Soul. So good. Yeah, quest packs. Yeah, I love it.
Do your maps.
Yeah.
There is a carousel on our Instagram to help you see what the maps look like if you're on the fence about Expedition to Soul. There's lots of support and lots of things in there. But to get ready, pack your quest pack. You know me, I'm always packing a sandwich because hungry all the time. So I'm ready to have opportunities in the guise of sandwiches and no more Gemini tears. So
no more Gemini tears.
Right. So onwards, everybody. And I hope you have a great week and that this astrological week serves you well and that we will see you for Expedition to Soul starting tomorrow. And thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great week. See you in Expedition to Soul.
Yeah.